I need to start somewhere honest, before everything twisted into what it became. Before I learned that the people closest to you can architect your destruction with the same hands that once clapped you on the back. Before I understood that loyalty is a performance, and that some men will burn your entire world down just to stand in the warmth of what you lost. I was 21 years old, a junior at Penn, studying economics with a finance concentration. Not Wharton, regular College of Arts and Sciences, which meant I was surrounded by kids who'd come from prep schools with Roman numerals after their names, kids whose parents had buildings with their surnames etched in limestone, kids who treated a $60,000 annual tuition like a rounding error. I wasn't one of them. My dad managed a small hardware store in Allentown. My mom was a paralegal. They'd saved, sacrificed, and supplemented with loans, so I could sit in the same lecture halls as kids who summered in the Hamptons. I made it work. I was good at numbers, better at reading people, and best at showing up. I joined the right clubs, not the truly elite ones. Those required legacy connections I didn't have, but the accessible ones where smart kids from state schools and modest backgrounds could still network their way toward Wall Street. The Penn Investment Alliance, the Undergraduate Finance Club. I showed up to every speaker event, asked intelligent questions, collected business cards, sent follow-up emails that actually referenced specifics from the conversation. And I had Logan. Logan Bancroft had been my roommate freshman year, randomly assigned, one of those accidents that shapes everything that follows. He was from Greenwich, Connecticut. His father ran a mid-sized private equity firm. His mother sat on non-profit boards. He had the effortless charm of someone who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered, combined with just enough self-awareness to seem humble. He was tall, played club lacrosse, wore vintage Rolex watches he claimed were just family hand-me-downs, and had a smile that made professors remember his name. We became close in that particular way college roommates do when the friendship actually takes. Late-night conversations about career ambitions, shared hatred of our statistics professor, inside jokes that accumulated like sediment. By sophomore year, when we'd chosen to live together again in a 4-person suite, Logan felt like the brother I'd never had. He introduced me to people I'd never have accessed on my own. He brought me to informal gatherings at the off-campus apartments of seniors who were already interning at Goldman and Morgan Stanley. He vouched for me, and in that ecosystem, vouching mattered. "You're the smartest guy I know," he told me once, junior year, both of us slightly drunk after a Sigma Chi party. "No bullshit legacy advantages, no safety net. You're actually building this from nothing. That's worth more than anything my dad's money could buy." I believed him. I believed in him. And then there was Cassandra. Cassandra Hollis was a sophomore when I was a junior, studying English and art history, the kind of double major that signaled family wealth because it wasn't optimized for employment. She had dark hair she wore long and loose, green eyes that actually looked green in certain light, and a way of listening that made you feel like the only person in the room. She read Didion and Sontag. She could talk about Caravaggio's use of chiaroscuro and then pivot seamlessly to why the Eagles' defense was overrated. She was from the Main Line, one of those Philadelphia suburbs where old money lived quietly in stone houses behind iron gates. We met at a mixer hosted by the Arts and Culture Club. I'd gone because a classmate mentioned that finance recruiters sometimes showed up, looking for well-rounded candidates. Cassandra was there because she actually cared about art. We ended up in the corner, talking for 2 hours about everything except what we were supposed to be networking about. She made me laugh. I made her think. By the end of the night, I had her number. Logan was enthusiastic when I told him. "Cassandra Hollis? Dude, she's gorgeous. And her family, her dad's a partner at Drinker Biddle. Connections for days. He clapped me on the shoulder. You're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. It wasn't like that. Or maybe it was, at first, in some subconscious calculus I didn't want to acknowledge. But within weeks, the strategic element disappeared entirely. Cassandra was brilliant and curious and kind in ways that felt rare on a campus where most relationships were transactional. She challenged my assumptions. She made me defend my opinions. She'd show up at my apartment with coffee and croissants on Sunday mornings, climb into bed beside me, and read aloud from whatever novel she was working through. You know you're probably going to make a lot of money someday, she said once, about 4 months in, her head on my chest. Promise me you won't become one of those finance guys who thinks everything is a deal. I promise, I said. I meant it. We'd been together for 7 months when everything collapsed. It was late October of my junior year, midterms approaching, recruiting season in full swing. I was stressed. 4 interviews scheduled for the following week, 2 case studies due, a valuation project that was eating my nights. Logan was around less than usual. He'd started dating a girl from his communications class, Brianna something, and was spending most evenings at her place. Or so I thought. The first message from Cassandra came on a Thursday night. I was in the library 3rd floor, working through a discounted cash flow model. Cassandra, we need to talk. Come to my apartment when you're done. No context, no emoji. The kind of message that triggers immediate dread. I got there in 20 minutes. She lived in a renovated brownstone on Spruce Street, a 1-bedroom her parents subsidized. When she opened the door, her face was blotchy, eyes red. Did something happen? I asked. Are you okay? She stepped aside to let me in, then closed the door and stood with her arms crossed. How long have you been lying to me? The question landed like a slap. What are you talking about? She picked up her phone from the counter, hands shaking slightly, and pulled up a text thread. Logan showed me these tonight. He said he didn't want to, but he couldn't keep watching you do this to me. She turned the screen toward me. The messages were between me and someone named Alyssa. Timestamps from the past 3 months. Flirtatious exchanges. Plans to meet up. One message, allegedly from me, that read, Cass is great, but she's a bit much sometimes. You're easier to be around. Another, I'll come by after she goes to sleep. She never checks my location. I felt my stomach drop through the floor. Cassandra, he showed me the actual thread on his phone, she said, voice rising. He has screenshots from your phone. He said he saw them when you left it on the couch last week. That's not possible. I've never texted anyone named Alyssa. I don't even know an Alyssa. So Logan is lying? Her voice cracked. Your best friend, who has no reason to make this up, is just lying? I don't know why he'd... Yes, he has to be. She looked at me like I was a stranger. You're telling me he fabricated an entire text conversation? For what? To hurt you? To hurt me? I don't know, I was shouting now, panic overriding composure. But I swear to you on everything, I have never cheated on you. I have never texted anyone named Alyssa. You can look through my phone right now. He said you'd offer that. He said you'd have deleted everything by now. She wiped her eyes. He warned me you'd try to manipulate me. The precision of it was stunning. Logan had built a trap with no exit. Deny it? That's what a liar would do. Offer evidence? He'd predicted that too. Get angry? That's deflection. Stay calm? That's sociopathic control. Please, I said. Let me see the screenshots. Let me actually look at what he showed you. She pulled them up. The interface looked identical to iPhone messages. The contact name, Alyssa Keating. My profile picture at the top. Timestamps that aligned with nights I'd told Cassandra I was studying or at the library. The messages were in my casual texting style, lowercase, minimal punctuation, the same phrases I actually used. "Can I send these to myself?" I asked. "Why?" "Because I want to prove they're fake. There are forensic tools, metadata analysis. I can show you these were manipulated." She hesitated, then shook her head. "Logan said you'd try to create doubt. He said you're really smart and you'd have some technical explanation prepared." Every avenue of defense had been preemptively sealed. It was masterful, in a horrifying way. "Cassandra, look at me." I took her hands. She let me, barely. "I love you. I have never even thought about being with anyone else. I don't know why Logan is doing this, but I will figure it out, and I will prove it. Just please, please don't make a decision based on screenshots I've never seen the original source of." She pulled her hands away. "Get out. Cass, get out. I can't look at you right now." I left. I walked back to my apartment in a daze, the October cold biting through my jacket. Logan wasn't home. I tried calling him. No answer. I sent him a text. "We need to talk immediately. What the fuck did you tell Cassandra?" He responded 3 hours later. "I'm sorry, man. I didn't want to be the one to do it, but she deserved to know. I hope you get help." I called him. He didn't pick up. I spent that entire night trying to reverse engineer what had happened. The screenshots were sophisticated, too clean to be photoshopped in some obvious way, too detailed to be a rushed job. He'd needed access to my phone, or, at minimum, my iCloud account. I thought back to the previous week. Had I left my laptop open? Had I used his computer and stayed logged into iMessage? Nothing concrete emerged. Friday, I tried to see Cassandra between classes. She wouldn't respond to my messages. I went to her building. She didn't answer the buzzer. I waited outside. When she finally emerged, flanked by 2 of her friends, she looked through me like I was invisible. "Please, just give me 5 minutes," I said. One of her friends, Tiffany, I think, stepped between us. "She doesn't want to talk to you. Leave her alone." "Cassandra, I can prove this isn't real. Just let me—" "If you contact her again, we're filing a harassment complaint with the university," Tiffany said. They walked past me. I stood there on Spruce Street, students flowing around me like water around a stone, and felt the world rearrange itself into something unrecognizable. By Saturday, the story had metastasized. I started noticing it in small ways. People I knew from classes or clubs, not close friends, but friendly acquaintances, suddenly avoiding eye contact in the dining hall. A group chat I was part of for the Investment Alliance went quiet whenever I sent a message. I got uninvited from a Halloween party I'd RSVP'd 2 weeks earlier. A polite message from the host, Ian Aldridge, saying they'd hit capacity and had to trim the list. Sunday night, I got a call from Russell Montoya, a senior I'd networked with extensively. He was already working part-time at a boutique investment bank, lined up for full-time post-graduation. We'd grabbed coffee 3 times. He'd offered to refer me for internships. "Hey man," he said, voice careful. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." "Okay." "Did you cheat on Cassandra Hollis?" The question hit like a gut punch, mostly because of how quickly it had traveled. "No, absolutely not. Someone fabricated evidence and, so Logan's lying." "Yes." Silence. On his end, the kind that communicates a decision already made. "Look, I don't know what happened between you 2, and I'm not trying to get in the middle of it, but people are talking, and if there's drama around your name, I can't have that associated with mine when I'm trying to build credibility at the firm." "Russell, I didn't do anything." "I'm sure you didn't, man. I'm just saying, perception matters in this industry. And right now, the perception is complicated. Let's reconnect after things settle down." He hung up. That's when I understood. Logan hadn't just turned Cassandra against me. He'd called people. He'd spread the story. He'd positioned himself as the reluctant truth-teller, the friend torn between loyalty and conscience. And because he was Logan Bancroft, because he had credibility and connections and that earnest, trustworthy charm, people believed him. I was being systematically erased. Monday, I tried to go on the offensive. I scheduled a meeting with Gavin Serrano, the faculty advisor for the Investment Alliance, and explained the situation. I showed him my actual phone, the absence of any messages to or from anyone named Alyssa Keating. I explained that I believed someone had fabricated screenshots to damage my relationship and my reputation. Professor Serrano listened, nodded thoughtfully, and then said, "This sounds like a personal matter between you and your friends. Unless there's a university policy violation or academic dishonesty involved, I'm not sure how I can help. Someone is spreading false information about me that's affecting my ability to network and participate in club activities. Has anyone prevented you from attending events?" "No, but..." "Then I'd suggest you work this out privately. College relationships are complicated. These things tend to blow over." They did not blow over. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched my social infrastructure collapse. Invitations stopped. Group chats went dormant or reformed without me. People I'd considered friends started giving me one-word answers when I'd try to make conversation. The Halloween party I'd been uninvited to happened without me. I saw the pictures on Instagram, Logan front and center, arm around Brianna, smiling that golden boy smile. Cassandra blocked me on everything. I tried emailing her from a new address, carefully explaining that I had never cheated, that I suspected Logan had manipulated the evidence, that I could prove it if she'd just give me the chance. She forwarded the email to Logan, who then sent me a message. "Dude, you need to stop. Cassandra asked me to tell you that if you contact her again, she's going to campus police. What you did was shitty enough. Don't make it worse by harassing her." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the collar and force him to admit what he'd done. But I had no proof, no leverage, no allies. I started skipping club meetings. Not because I was barred, but because the atmosphere had changed. People were polite but distant, the warmth replaced by professional coolness. I'd walk into a room and conversations would pause, then resume at a lower volume. I overheard fragments once, standing outside the fourth-floor lounge where the finance club held its officer meetings. Just think it's a bad look to have him presenting to recruiters. Innocent until proven guilty, though, right? Not about guilt, it's about optics. We're trying to build relationships with these firms, and if they Google his name and see drama... I stopped going after that. November bled into December. I kept my head down, focused on coursework, sent out internship applications on my own. I got a few first-round interviews, did well enough to advance, then got rejection emails a week later with no explanation. I started to wonder if someone, Logan probably, was making calls. A casual mention to a recruiter that I had personal issues or interpersonal problems. Nothing actionable, nothing provable, just enough to make me a risk not worth taking. Finals arrived. I studied alone in my apartment, avoiding the library and the collaborative study groups I'd once been part of. Logan was rarely home. When he was, we didn't speak. He'd make himself a late-night snack in the kitchen, hum softly, act like nothing had changed. Once, he caught me staring at him from the living room. "You good?" he asked casually. "Why did you do it?" I said. He looked genuinely confused. "Do what?" "You know what." He shook his head slowly, almost sadly. "I showed Cassandra the truth because she deserved to know. If you're angry about that, that's on you, not me. I was being a good friend to her. Maybe someday you'll understand that." Then he took his sandwich and went to his room. I graduated that semester, winter graduation, having finished my credits early, with honors but no job offers, no solid leads, and no network to speak of. My parents came down for the ceremony. They were proud, took pictures, asked why Logan wasn't there. I told them we'd drifted apart. "That's too bad," my mom said. "He seemed like such a nice young man." I moved back to Allentown in January. My childhood bedroom, posters from high school still on the walls. I slept on a twin bed and applied to jobs from a laptop balanced on my knees. The pen network I'd spent 3 years cultivating had evaporated. I reached out to alumni contacts I'd made freshman and sophomore year before everything fell apart. Most didn't respond. One did, an analyst at J.P. Morgan, and we had a phone call where he politely explained that they weren't hiring for off-cycle positions. "Did you recruit on campus this fall?" he asked. "I did. Didn't get any offers." "Huh, that's surprising. Your resume looks solid." I didn't know what to say to that. February, March, April. I sent out hundreds of applications. I got occasional phone screens, a handful of first-round interviews, nothing that progressed. I started applying to corporate finance roles at mid-sized companies in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I interviewed for a financial analyst position at a pharmaceutical company in King of Prussia. I made it to the final round, met with the CFO, felt like I'd nailed it. They hired someone else. By June, I was working at a regional bank in Allentown, doing credit analysis for small business loans. It wasn't what I'd envisioned. It wasn't Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, or even a decent corporate development role. It was a fluorescent-lit office on Hamilton Street, where I evaluated whether local contractors could afford equipment financing. But it was something, and I needed something. I kept my head down. I learned the work: underwriting standards, cash flow analysis, collateral evaluation. I was good at it, meticulous in ways my colleagues weren't. I caught errors in loan documents that would have exposed the bank to unnecessary risk. I flagged inconsistencies in financial statements that suggested borrowers were inflating their revenues. Within 6 months, my manager, Bryce Kingsley, started routing the complex applications to me. "You've got an eye for this," he said. "Most kids coming out of college want to be investment bankers. They think this kind of work is beneath them. But this is where you learn to actually evaluate credit risk. This is where you learn what real businesses look like, not the sanitized case studies they show you in school." He was right, though I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was still bitter, still raw, still checking LinkedIn compulsively to see where my former classmates were landing. Logan had joined his father's private equity firm. Surprise, surprise. Russell Montoya was at Lazard. Ian Aldridge was at Blackstone. And I was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, analyzing whether a plumbing contractor could afford a $75,000 loan. But I learned. I learned how to read financial statements with forensic precision. I learned how to model cash flows conservatively. I learned how to ask the right questions in borrower meetings, not the scripted ones from banking interviews, but the real ones that revealed whether someone actually understood their business or was just optimistic. And I saved. I lived at home, paid my parents' modest rent, drove my dad's old Honda Civic. My salary was $52,000, which felt insulting after Penn, but I saved 60% of it. No bars, no trips, no social life to fund. I put it into a high-yield savings account and watched the balance grow slowly, mechanically, like sediment accumulating on a riverbed. 2 years in, Bryce pulled me aside. "There's a position opening up at a commercial real estate lender in Philadelphia. It's a step up from what you're doing here. Larger deals, more complex capital structures. I know the hiring manager. I can put in a word." I took the interview. I got the offer. I moved to Philadelphia in the fall of 2016 into a studio apartment in Fishtown and started analyzing acquisition financing for multifamily properties and retail developments. The work was more interesting. The deals were in the $5 million to $30 million range, still not the massive leveraged buyouts I'd once fantasized about, but substantial enough to require real analytical rigor. I worked with developers, construction firms, institutional investors. I learned how to structure mezzanine debt. I learned how to negotiate covenants. I learned how to identify which developers were competent operators and which were over-leveraged gamblers. And I kept saving. My salary was $78,000, then $92,000 after a promotion. I lived cheaply, spent nothing on status signaling, invested in index funds with robotic consistency. By late 2017, I had nearly $200,000 in liquid assets, savings, investments, a small inheritance from my grandfather's estate that had come through earlier that year. It wasn't generational wealth. It wasn't enough to retire or start my own firm, but it was leverage. I started thinking differently about money, not as a scorecard or a validation mechanism, but as a tool that bought freedom and optionality. $200,000 meant I could walk away from a job I hated. It meant I could take risks without catastrophic consequences. It meant I didn't need to perform gratitude for opportunities that undervalued me. In early 2018, a developer I'd worked with, Desmond Radcliffe, who owned a small portfolio of mixed-use properties in Northern Liberties, approached me with an unusual proposition. "I'm looking at a distressed apartment complex in Kensington," he said over lunch. 16 units, half occupied, owners in foreclosure. Bank's going to auction it off. I think I can get it for $850,000, put in another $300,000 for renovations, and have it stabilized at a $1.8 million valuation within 18 months. What do you need from me? Partnership. You put in $200,000 as equity. I'll match it. We'll finance the rest. You handle all the financial structuring, projections, investor reporting. I handle acquisitions and property management. We split profits 50-50 after preferred returns. It was the first time anyone had offered me a seat at the table instead of a position at the sidelines. I spent 2 weeks digging through the numbers, analyzing the submarket, stress testing the renovation budget. The deal was solid. Aggressive timeline, meaningful execution risk, but solid. I wired $200,000, almost everything I had, into the partnership account. We closed on the property in March 2018. The renovations took 9 months instead of 6. We went over budget by $65,000. 2 tenants sued us over habitability issues during the construction phase. We settled both for nuisance amounts. By the time we'd stabilized the building in early 2019, I was exhausted and broke, but we refinanced at a $1.9 million valuation. Desmond and I each pulled out $320,000 in equity and retained ownership of a cash-flowing asset. I'd turned $200,000 into $320,000 in less than a year, while also learning every painful lesson about real estate development that you can't learn from a textbook. Desmond wanted to do another deal immediately. So did I. We found a small retail strip center in Fishtown that was underperforming due to poor tenant mix and deferred maintenance. We repeated the process: equity partnership, debt financing, renovation, lease-up. This one went smoother. We exited in 14 months with a 47% return. By 2020, I had $780,000 in liquid capital and a reputation in Philadelphia's real estate investor community as someone who could underwrite deals conservatively and execute without drama. Desmond and I formalized our partnership into an LLC, Radcliffe & Co., though my name was conspicuously absent from the letterhead, at my insistence. I didn't want visibility yet. I wanted capability. We started raising outside capital. Small amounts at first. $50,000 from a local dentist who wanted real estate exposure, $100,000 from a retired attorney I'd met through Bryce. We structured deals with preferred returns for our investors. They'd get 8% annually before Desmond and I took any profits. Then we'd split the upside 70-30 in their favor, up to a 15% IRR, and 50-50 beyond that. It was investor-friendly, almost excessively so, but it built trust. And trust, I was learning, was the only currency that mattered when you were asking people to wire you 6 figures, based on a pitch deck and a pro forma. By late 2021, we'd completed 8 projects. We'd returned capital to every investor with returns ranging from 12% to 31% IRR. Our AUM, assets under management, was approaching $30 million. We'd started getting inbound inquiries from family offices and small institutions who wanted exposure to Philadelphia value-add real estate, but didn't want to manage it themselves. I hired our first employee in early 2022, a junior analyst named Connor McAllister, a Penn grad, ironic I know, who was hungry and detail-oriented. Then an asset manager, Monique Sawyer, who'd worked in property management for a decade. Then a CFO, Arthur Delaney, who'd spent 15 years at a regional REIT before burning out and wanting to work at a smaller, more entrepreneurial platform. Radcliffe & Co. became a real operating company. We had an office in Old City, a small 2-floor space with exposed brick and glass conference rooms. We had systems, processes, investor reporting software. We were still small, 12 employees by the end of 2022, but we were professional. And I was becoming wealthy. Not rich in the ostentatious sense, not private jet wealthy, but genuinely financially independent. My ownership stake in the portfolio we'd built was worth approximately $8 million by late 2022. I took a modest salary, $175,000, and reinvested everything else. I bought a small row home in Rittenhouse Square, paid cash, renovated it quietly. I drove a used Audi, wore understated clothes, avoided the social circuits where Philadelphia's young money congregated. I had no interest in being visible. I had no interest in status signaling. I just wanted to build something that no one could take away from me. In early 2023, Desmond came to me with a proposition. He wanted to expand beyond Philadelphia, into Baltimore, into D.C., maybe even into secondary markets in the Carolinas. It would require raising a proper fund, $100 million or more, with institutional backing. We've proven the model, he said. We've got a track record. We can raise this. He was right. But I hesitated. If we scale this much, we're going to need heavier infrastructure. Compliance, legal, investor relations. We're going to be interacting with institutional LPs who do deep diligence. They're going to Google our names. They're going to ask for references. Desmond looked at me, confused. So? I hadn't told him about Penn, about Logan, about any of it. Why would I? It was ancient history, irrelevant to our business, except it wasn't. Because at a certain level of capital raising, people do background checks. They call around. They ask mutual contacts, "What do you know about this guy?" And if those calls reached anyone from my Penn network, anyone who'd been around during that October when Logan dismantled my life, what would they say? I decided I didn't care. If we were going to build this into something significant, I couldn't hide forever. We started raising Fund 1 in March 2023. We targeted family offices, endowments, foundations, institutional capital that wanted real estate exposure with a value-add strategy. We put together a pitch deck, a private placement memorandum, audited financials for our existing portfolio. We scheduled meetings, lots of meetings. Most went well. Our track record spoke for itself. We'd never lost investor capital. We'd exceeded pro forma returns on 75% of our projects. We had a clear, repeatable strategy, but in one meeting, a family office in New York, managed by a guy named Harvey Lombard, something shifted. Harvey was in his mid-50s, expensively dressed, the kind of guy who'd made his money in finance decades ago and now managed a $400 million pool of family wealth. We were pitching him on a $5 million commitment. The meeting was going fine until Harvey paused mid-presentation and said, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me." I felt my stomach tighten. "Of course." "I did some background on you. Penn Economics. Graduated 2015, and I know some people from that world. Guys who were a few years ahead of you. Guys who recruit from Penn. I made a few calls. Here it was, 8 years later, and the shadow was still there." "And," I said, "one person I talked to, Logan Bancroft actually, his dad and I have done deals together. He mentioned you'd had some personal issues during college, interpersonal stuff. He said it was resolved, but he wanted me to be aware." Desmond glanced at me, surprised. I kept my face neutral. "Logan said that?" "He did. He was careful about it. Said he didn't want to badmouth you, but he thought I should know there was some history." I could have deflected. I could have said it was a personal matter, irrelevant to our business. I could have changed the subject. Instead, I said, "What exactly did Logan tell you?" Harvey shifted in his chair. "That you'd had a situation with a girlfriend in college, some accusations of dishonesty, and that it created friction in your social circles. He said you'd moved past it, but that some people still had concerns about your character." The precision of it was remarkable. Logan had managed to plant doubt without making a specific accusation, without saying anything actionable, while simultaneously pretending to be fair-minded and restrained. "Logan fabricated evidence to convince my girlfriend I'd cheated on her," I said, voice calm. "He created fake text message screenshots and showed them to her personally. Then he called mutual contacts and told them I was untrustworthy. He systematically destroyed my reputation over the course of 2 weeks because he wanted her for himself." Harvey blinked. "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth. I have no way to prove it after this many years, and frankly, I stopped trying years ago. But if you're going to make an investment decision based on what Logan Bancroft says about my character, you should know what actually happened." Silence in the conference room. Desmond was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Harvey leaned back in his chair. "Why didn't you fight it at the time?" "I tried, but Logan had credibility and connections, and I had neither. By the time I understood what was happening, the narrative was already set, so I left. I moved home, I started over." "And you built this." Harvey gestured at the portfolio summary on the screen behind me. "Yes." He studied me for a long moment, then closed his laptop. "I'm going to pass on this fundraise. Not because I think you're dishonest. I actually believe your version of events. But because I don't invest in situations where there's interpersonal complexity that could resurface. It's a risk management principle, nothing personal." "I understand," I said. We left the meeting. Desmond and I didn't speak until we were back on the train to Philadelphia. "You want to tell me what that was about?" he asked. I told him everything, the whole story, start to finish, detail by detail. When I was done, Desmond was quiet for several blocks. Then he said, "You've been carrying that for 8 years?" "Yes, and you never mentioned it." Why would I? It's not relevant to our work. He shook his head. It's completely relevant, man. You built this entire firm because someone took everything from you, and you had no choice but to start from zero. That's the whole origin story. I didn't respond. We're going to finish this raise, Desmond said. And someday, Logan Bancroft is going to need something from you. And, when he does, you're going to have a choice. I already know what choice I'll make, I said. We raised $87 million for Fund 1 by August 2023. Not the $100 million we'd targeted, but enough to execute our strategy. We deployed capital into 9 projects across Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Richmond. We hired additional staff. We professionalized our investor reporting, our compliance infrastructure, our legal framework. By early 2024, Radcliffe & Co. was managing $140 million in AUM. We had 23 employees. We had institutional LPs who trusted us with 8-figure commitments. We had a track record that spoke for itself. And I was, by any objective measure, successful. My net worth was approaching $15 million. I owned my home outright. I had financial security my parents couldn't have imagined. But I thought about Logan every single day, not obsessively, not with rage, just a quiet, constant awareness that somewhere out there, the man who destroyed my life with a few fabricated screenshots was living his own successful life, unburdened by consequences, probably unaware that I'd thought about him at all, until May 2024, when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: Opportunity to connect, hey. Not sure if you remember me, Cassandra Hollis. We dated at Penn, a long time ago now. I know we didn't end well, and I know it's probably strange to hear from me after nearly a decade. I'm reaching out because I'm working on a residential development project in Philadelphia, and someone mentioned your firm as a potential financing partner. I wanted to reach out personally before going through formal channels, in case you'd prefer not to work together given our history. If you're open to a conversation, I'd appreciate the chance to catch up. If not, I completely understand. Cassandra. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk. I walked through Rittenhouse Square, past the brownstones and the cafes and the couples with strollers. I walked down Walnut Street, past the boutiques and the restaurants where young professionals celebrated promotions. I walked until my thoughts settled into something coherent. Cassandra had reached out, after 9 years. Not to apologize, the email was carefully neutral, professional, deniable, but to ask for something: financing, access, leverage. The irony was almost poetic. I went back to my office. I pulled up her LinkedIn profile. She'd graduated from Penn, worked briefly at an art advisory firm, then transitioned into real estate development through her family's connections. She was now a principal at a boutique development firm focused on mixed-use projects in Philadelphia and the Main Line. Her project, I found the details through a public records search, was a 30-unit residential building in Fairmount. Mid-market, nothing special, but competently structured. She needed $8 million in construction financing. It was exactly the kind of deal we'd typically consider. I called Desmond. We just got an inquiry on a Fairmount project. 30 units, $8 million construction loan. Developer is someone I knew in college. Good developer? I don't know yet. We'd have to do full diligence. You want to take the meeting? I thought about it. Yes. We scheduled a call for the following week. Cassandra, me, Desmond, and Connor, our analyst. Cassandra presented the project competently. Site plans, financial projections, construction timelines, exit strategy. She knew her numbers. She'd clearly worked with serious people. Desmond asked good questions. Connor took notes. I mostly listened. At the end, Desmond said, "We'll review internally and get back to you within a week." "Thank you," Cassandra said. Then, after a pause, "It's good to see you doing well." I didn't respond. After the call, Desmond looked at me. "That's her? The one from the story?" "Yes." "You going to do the deal?" "We're going to evaluate it on the merits," I said. "If the numbers work and the risk is acceptable, we'll do it. If not, we won't." Connor ran the analysis. The project was borderline. Conservative revenue assumptions would generate a 9.2% return for us. Acceptable, but not compelling. Aggressive assumptions pushed it to 13.7%. Good, but predicated on Cassandra hitting her construction timeline and lease-up projections without delays. "It's not a slam dunk," Connor said, "but it's not a pass either. Comes down to how much we trust the sponsor." I approved the deal. We structured it with protective covenants, completion guarantees, regular draw inspections, personal recourse if the project went sideways. Cassandra signed everything without pushback. We wired the first construction draw in June 2024. Over the next several months, I reviewed the monthly progress reports that Cassandra submitted. The project was moving forward on schedule. She was communicating proactively, flagging minor issues before they became problems, adapting to supply chain delays with reasonable solutions. She was, objectively, a competent developer. In September, she requested a meeting to discuss a second project, a larger mixed-use development in Manayunk, 50 residential units plus ground floor retail. She needed $18 million. We met in person this time, at our office in Old City. Cassandra arrived on time, dressed professionally, carrying a leather portfolio. She'd aged well. Same dark hair, now cut shorter. Same green eyes, a few lines around them that made her look serious rather than older. She presented the project. It was ambitious but well conceived. Strong submarket fundamentals, differentiated product, realistic absorption timeline. Desmond and I asked questions for 90 minutes. She answered all of them without hesitation. At the end, Desmond excused himself to take a call. Cassandra and I sat alone in the conference room. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Why did you approve the Fairmount project?" I looked at her evenly. "Because the numbers worked." "That's the only reason?" "What other reason would there be?" She set down her pen. "I know what happened between us ended badly. I know I believed things about you that weren't true, and I know you probably have every reason to reject anything I bring you out of, I don't know, resentment or principle, or just not wanting to deal with me. Is there a question in there? Did Logan lie to me?" The question hung in the air between us. "Yes," I said. "About the text messages?" "Yes." "How do you know?" "Because I never sent them. Because I've never texted anyone named Alyssa Keating in my life. Because the entire thing was fabricated to turn you against me." She looked down at her hands. "I found out 2 years ago. Logan and I dated for a while after you left Penn. It didn't last, but during the breakup, he got drunk one night and admitted he'd manipulated the screenshots because he'd been in love with me since freshman year and couldn't stand watching us together." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "And you're telling me this now?" "I didn't know how to reach you. I thought about it for 2 years. And then I saw your firm's name on a lender list. And I realized you were here, in Philadelphia, successful. And I thought, I don't know what I thought, that maybe I could apologize or explain or—" "You thought you could get financing." She flinched. It's not like that. Isn't it? You need $18 million for a project. You know I can provide it. And you're telling me, conveniently now, that you've known for 2 years that Logan destroyed my reputation based on lies. But you're only reaching out now that you need something. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "You're right. I should have reached out sooner. I should have tried to make it right when I found out, not when it was convenient for me." "Yes, you should have." She stood to leave. "I understand if you don't want to work with me. I'll find financing elsewhere." "Sit down," I said. She hesitated, then sat. "I'm going to fund your Manayunk project," I said. "We'll structure it the same way we structured Fairmount. Conservative terms, strong covenants, full recourse. You're going to execute it flawlessly, the same way you're executing Fairmount. And when it's done, you're going to make us a very good return." "Okay," she said, "but we're not going to have a personal relationship beyond professional courtesy. We're not going to be friends. We're not going to process the past, or find closure, or whatever it is you think might happen here. You're going to be a developer we work with, that's all." She nodded slowly. "I understand." Desmond returned. We finalized the terms. Cassandra left. After she was gone, Desmond said, "You're harder than I thought." "Am I?" She apologized. "She told you the truth, and you just shut her down." "She apologized because she needed something," I said. "If she didn't need financing, I'd never have heard from her." "Maybe, but she still told you the truth." 9 years late. Desmond didn't argue. We funded the Manayunk project in October 2024. Cassandra executed it well. By December, she'd requested a third meeting, this time to discuss an even larger project, a 70-unit development in Center City. I approved it. Then a fourth, then a fifth. By early 2025, Cassandra's firm was one of our most active borrowers. We had $52 million deployed across 6 of her projects. She was generating strong returns for us, executing on time and on budget, building a reputation as one of the more reliable sponsors in our portfolio. And our interactions remained professional, transactional, efficient. She'd send reports. I'd review them. We'd have quarterly calls to discuss performance and pipeline. That was it. In March 2025, she asked if we could have coffee. Not about a deal, just to talk. I said no. She asked again in May. I said no. In July, she sent an email. "I know you don't want a personal relationship. I respect that. But I need you to know that I've spent the last year trying to figure out how to make things right. And I don't know how. I can't undo what I believed about you. I can't give you back the years you lost. I can't repair the damage Logan did, but I can tell you that I was wrong, and that I'm sorry, and that if there's any way I can earn your forgiveness, I'd like to try." I stared at the email for a long time. Then I replied, "Meet me at the coffee shop on 18th and Rittenhouse, tomorrow, 2 p.m. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug. She looked nervous. I sat down across from her. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told her, "about trying to make things right. And I don't think that's possible. The past is the past. But I've also been thinking about whether I want to keep punishing you for a choice you made when you were 20 years old, based on evidence that was designed to be convincing. And I don't. I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of keeping everyone at arm's length because I'm afraid of being hurt again. And I think maybe it's time to try something different." Her eyes were wet. "What does that mean?" "It means I want to have dinner with you, not as a lender and a developer, as 2 people who used to know each other and are trying to figure out if there's anything worth rebuilding." "I'd like that," she said. We started slowly. Dinners once a week, then twice. Long walks along the Schuylkill River Trail. Conversations that stretched past midnight. We talked about the years we'd lost, the people we'd become, the ways we'd both changed. She told me about dating Logan after I'd left Penn, how he'd been possessive and controlling, how the relationship had ended badly when she'd realized he saw her as something he'd won, rather than someone he loved. how she'd spent years in therapy working through trust issues, learning to recognize manipulation, building boundaries. I told her about Allentown, about the isolation and the grinding work and the slow accumulation of skills and capital, about learning to rely only on myself because I couldn't rely on anyone else. "I turned you into someone harder," she said one night. Both of us sitting on my couch, the city lights visible through the windows. "Logan did that. You just didn't stop him." "That's still on me." "Yes, but I'm choosing to let it go. Not because you've earned it exactly, but because holding on to it isn't serving me anymore." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I don't deserve this. Another chance with you." "Probably not, but I'm giving it to you anyway." By August 2025, we were fully together. Not just dating, but building something real. She started keeping clothes at my place. I had a key to hers. We made plans that extended months into the future. And something I hadn't felt in over a decade started to return: trust. Not complete, not unconditional, but present. One evening in early September, Cassandra came to me with a folder in her hands. "I need to show you something," she said. She handed me the folder. Inside were printed screenshots, the same ones Logan had shown her in October 2014, the fabricated text messages with Alyssa Keating. "I had them forensically analyzed," she said. "I hired a digital forensics firm to examine the metadata, the image compression artifacts, the font rendering. They confirmed what you told me. The screenshots were manipulated. They were created using photo editing software, not captured from an actual phone." I looked at the report. It was thorough, technical, definitive. "Why did you do this?" I asked. "Because I needed to know for certain, and because I thought you deserved proof. Proof you could use if you ever wanted to." I stared at the forensic report. 11 years. 11 years of carrying the weight of a lie I couldn't disprove, and now here it was. Technical, definitive, irrefutable evidence. "I also found the real Alyssa Keating," Cassandra continued. "She was a student at Drexel at the time. Logan had met her at a party once, got her number. He used her actual name to make the fake conversations seem more credible, so if you'd searched for her, you'd find a real person who existed in Philadelphia at that time. Did you talk to her?" "Briefly. She had no idea Logan had used her name. She barely remembered meeting him. When I explained what he'd done, she was horrified." I closed the folder carefully. "This is everything I needed 11 years ago." "I know. What do you want me to do with it?" She took a breath. "I want us to destroy him. Together. I want him to face consequences for what he did. Not just to you, but to me. He manipulated me, used me as a weapon, then tried to control me when he thought he'd won. He's a narcissist, and he's been getting away with it his entire life because people like him always do." I looked at her, this woman I'd loved, lost, and found again. "You want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Justice means he faces appropriate consequences. Revenge would be making him suffer just to make him suffer. I want the first thing. Don't you?" I thought about it. Honestly thought about it. "Yes," I said. "I do." Over the next 3 weeks, Cassandra and I built a plan. It started with research. We compiled everything we knew about Logan's current situation, his position at his father's private equity firm, his failed prop tech fundraise, his professional network, his reputation in the industry. We identified his vulnerabilities, where he was overextended, where his credibility mattered most, where exposure would hurt him worst. Logan had been living off his father's reputation for years. He'd never built anything independently, never proven himself outside the protective bubble of family wealth and connections. His failed fundraise had been embarrassing, but not catastrophic. He'd spun it as a strategic pause, claimed he was refocusing on direct investments through the family firm. But his father was getting older. The firm was preparing for succession. Logan was positioning himself as the heir apparent, the next generation of Bancroft leadership. That was the pressure point. Cassandra also did something I hadn't expected. She called Logan and recorded the conversation. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state, meaning she could legally record without telling him. She told him she knew about the fabricated screenshots. She pushed him, challenged him, refused to accept his deflections, and eventually he admitted it. Fine, yes, I created the screenshots. I was in love with you, okay? I couldn't stand watching you two together. I thought if I broke you up, she'd eventually realize I was the better choice. It was stupid, it was wrong, but it was 11 years ago. We were kids. He landed on his feet, didn't he? He's successful now. So what's the problem? She played me the recording. 23 minutes of Logan progressively losing his composure, trying to minimize what he'd done, eventually admitting everything. This is it, I said. This is what we needed. So what do we do with it? I smiled for the first time in weeks. We set a trap. Cassandra reached out to Logan in late September, sending him a carefully crafted email. Logan, I know we haven't spoken in years, and I know our history is complicated, but I wanted to reach out because I'm working on something I think you'd be interested in. I'm raising capital for a real estate development fund. $50 million target, focused on mixed-use projects in Philadelphia and the surrounding markets. I've been working with several lenders and equity partners, and I'm looking for strategic investors who understand the space. I know you've been focused on prop tech, but I think there's overlap here. Would you be open to a conversation? Cassandra Logan responded within 2 hours. Cassandra, great to hear from you. I'd definitely be interested in learning more. Are you free for coffee next week? They met at a cafe in Rittenhouse. Cassandra played it perfectly, warm but professional, enthusiastic about her fund, complimentary about Logan's experience and network. She pitched the opportunity. $5 million minimum investment, strong projected returns, access to deal flow in a market Logan claimed to understand. I'd need to see the full fund docs, Logan said, but conceptually I'm very interested, and I think my father's firm might be interested in a larger allocation if the terms are right. That would be incredible, Cassandra said. Can I send you the PPM? Absolutely. She sent him a private placement memorandum that afternoon. It was real, an actual fund structure she'd been developing with her attorneys, complete with financial projections, market analysis, and risk disclosures. Logan scheduled a follow-up meeting for the next week. This time, he wanted to bring his father. Cassandra called me immediately. He took the bait. He's bringing Leonard Bancroft to the next meeting. Leonard Bancroft was a legend in mid-market private equity. He'd built his firm over 3 decades, earned a reputation for integrity and disciplined investing, sat on multiple nonprofit boards. He was everything Logan pretended to be. Are you ready? I asked. Yes, are you? I've been ready for 11 years. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon at Logan's office in Center City. Cassandra arrived on time, carrying a leather portfolio, every inch the polished developer she'd become. Logan greeted her warmly, introduced her to his father. Leonard was in his mid-60s, gray hair, sharp eyes, the kind of man who'd built his success on reading people and situations accurately. They settled into a conference room. Cassandra presented the fund strategy, fielding questions from both Bancrofts. Logan was enthusiastic, already positioning himself as the champion of the deal internally. Leonard was more measured, asking detailed questions about assumptions, downside scenarios, capital structure. This is well structured, Leonard said after 30 minutes. I'm impressed with the diligence you've put into this. Thank you. I've learned a lot over the past few years, working with some excellent partners. Speaking of partners, Logan interjected, you mentioned you're working with several lenders and equity providers. Anyone we'd know? Actually, yes. My primary lending partner is Radcliffe and Company. They've financed 6 of my projects over the past 18 months. Logan's expression didn't change, but I imagined something shifted behind his eyes. Radcliffe, Leonard said. I've heard good things. They're the value-add real estate debt fund, correct? That's right. They've been excellent to work with. And the principals there, do you work with them directly? I work primarily with the founder. We have a very good relationship. Logan cleared his throat. I actually know the founder. We went to Penn together. Small world. Really? Cassandra's tone was perfectly surprised. He never mentioned that. We were roommates, actually, close friends. We've lost touch over the years, but I've been meaning to reconnect. Leonard looked at his son with interest. You know the Radcliffe team? That could be valuable for due diligence. Absolutely. I can reach out, get some background on Cassandra's projects, verify the relationship. That would be helpful, Leonard said. Cassandra smiled. Actually, I was planning to invite him to join us for our next meeting. I think it would be valuable to have the lending perspective represented, especially if you're considering a significant investment. Logan hesitated for just a fraction of a second. That's a great idea. They scheduled the follow-up for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend preparing, not notes or presentations, I didn't need those, just mentally rehearsing, running through scenarios, ensuring I could stay controlled no matter what Logan said or did. This was it. 11 years of waiting, building, accumulating power and credibility, 11 years of carrying the weight of what he'd done. And now, I was going to make him pay for it. Tuesday arrived. I put on a charcoal suit, a white shirt, no tie. I looked successful but not ostentatious. Exactly the image I'd cultivated for years. Cassandra and I arrived at the Bancroft office separately. She went up first. I waited in the lobby for exactly 5 minutes, then took the elevator to the 14th floor. The receptionist directed me to the conference room. I opened the door. Logan was standing by the window, mid-sentence, gesturing as he explained something to his father. He turned when I entered. For a moment, neither of us moved. I watched the recognition hit him. Watched his face go through a series of micro-expressions, surprise, confusion, then something that looked almost like fear. Thanks for joining us, Cassandra said smoothly. Logan Leonard, this is my lending partner from Radcliffe and Company. I walked forward, extended my hand to Leonard first. Good to meet you. Leonard shook it firmly. Likewise, I've heard excellent things about your firm. Then I turned to Logan, extended my hand, waited. He took it. His palm was slightly damp. It's been a long time, Logan said, voice carefully neutral. Yes, it has. We sat. Cassandra led the conversation, discussing the fund structure, the pipeline of projects, the capital requirements. I provided perspective on how we evaluated her deals, the diligence process, the performance of her existing projects. Leonard asked good questions. Logan said very little, uncharacteristically quiet. After 45 minutes, Leonard leaned back in his chair. This all sounds very solid. I think we'd be interested in a $5 to $10 million commitment, subject to full diligence and legal review. That's wonderful, Cassandra said. I do have one question, Leonard continued. You mentioned you and my son were close friends at Penn. Can you speak to that relationship? I like to understand the networks around the deals we're considering. I looked directly at Logan. He was very still. Logan and I were roommates junior year, I said. We were close for a period of time. The friendship ended badly, under circumstances that I'd prefer not to discuss in a professional setting. Leonard frowned. That's concerning. If there's interpersonal conflict that might affect the deal. There won't be, I said. Whatever happened between Logan and me is in the past. I'm here because Cassandra is an excellent developer, and this is a sound investment opportunity. My personal history with your son is irrelevant to that analysis. Logan finally spoke. I appreciate that, and for what it's worth, I think we've both moved past whatever happened back then. Have we? I asked calmly. The conference room went very quiet. Leonard looked between us. Gentlemen, if there's something I should know, there is, I said. I reached into my portfolio and removed 2 folders. I slid one across the table to Leonard, kept the other closed in front of me. What is this? Leonard asked. It's a forensic analysis of fabricated text message screenshots that Logan created in October 2014, along with a recorded confession from Logan admitting to the fabrication. Logan went pale. What are you doing? I ignored him, speaking directly to Leonard. 11 years ago, your son was in love with Cassandra. She was my girlfriend at the time. Logan fabricated evidence that I was cheating on her. He created fake screenshots of text message conversations with another woman, showed them to Cassandra personally, and convinced her I'd been lying for months. Then he called our mutual friends and professional contacts, telling them I was untrustworthy. Within 2 weeks, I lost my girlfriend, my social circle, my professional network, and my career prospects. Leonard opened the folder, started reading. This is insane, Logan said, standing up. Dad, he's clearly unstable. He's been holding on to some kind of grudge for over a decade. Sit down, Leonard said quietly. Logan sat. Leonard read through the forensic report carefully. I watched his face change as he processed what he was seeing. The technical analysis, the proof of manipulation, the careful documentation of exactly how Logan had fabricated the evidence. Then he looked at me. You have a recording? I pulled out my phone, opened the audio file Cassandra had sent me, and played it. Logan's voice filled the conference room. Fine, yes, I created the screenshots. I was in love with you, okay? I couldn't stand watching you two together. I thought if I broke you up, she'd eventually realize I was the better choice. It was stupid, it was wrong, but it was 11 years ago. We were kids. Cassandra's voice. You destroyed his life. You cost him his career, his reputation, everything he'd built. Logan's voice. He landed on his feet, didn't he? He's successful now. So what's the problem? I stopped the playback. Leonard set down the folder. His face had gone gray, the expression of a man who just realized he'd failed at something fundamental. Get out, he said to Logan. Dad, get out of this office now. Logan looked at his father, then at me, then at Cassandra. For a moment I saw something in his face I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. The realization that he'd finally gone too far, that his father's protection had limits, that consequences were real. Dad, please, we can talk about this. There is nothing to talk about. You fabricated evidence to destroy someone's life because you wanted his girlfriend. You lied to me, to our firm, to everyone, and you've been carrying that lie for 11 years without telling me. Get out. Logan stood slowly. He looked at me one more time, and I saw hatred there, pure and undiluted. Good. I wanted him to hate me. I wanted him to know exactly who had destroyed him. He walked out of the conference room. The door closed behind him. Leonard sat in silence for a long moment. Then he looked at me. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, I said. You didn't know. No, but I raised him, and somewhere along the way, I failed to raise someone with basic integrity. He closed the folder. What do you want? You clearly didn't come here just to inform me. You want something. I want Logan removed from your firm, I said. I want him completely cut off from your professional network, your resources, your reputation. I want him to have to build something on his own, the way I did, without the safety net of family money or connections. Done. I also want you to tell the people he contacted during his failed fundraise, the family offices, the institutions he approached, exactly why you're severing ties with him. I don't want him to be able to spin this as a personal disagreement or a generational conflict. I want people to know what he did. Leonard nodded slowly. That's fair. Anything else? I thought about it. About all the years of isolation and rebuilding. About the career I'd lost and the one I'd built from nothing. About Cassandra sitting beside me, the woman I'd loved and lost and found again. No, I said. That's all. Leonard stood, extended his hand. I'm sorry for what my son did to you, truly, and for what it's worth, I'm impressed with what you've built despite it. That takes character. I shook his hand. Thank you. Cassandra and I left the office together. We didn't speak in the elevator, didn't speak crossing the lobby, didn't speak until we were 2 blocks away. Then she stopped, turned to me and asked, How do you feel? I thought about the question, really thought about it. I paused, searching for the right word. Free. For the first time in 11 years, I feel free. She took my hand. Good, because you are. We walked back to my office. Desmond was waiting, having watched the whole thing happen in real time through periodic text updates from Cassandra. Well, he asked. It's done, I said. How do you feel? Everyone keeps asking me that. Because it's a big fucking deal, man. You just destroyed the person who destroyed you. That's not nothing. He was right. It wasn't nothing. Over the next 2 weeks, the consequences rippled outward like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Leonard Bancroft was true to his word. He removed Logan from the firm entirely. Not a quiet resignation, but a public separation announced in a press release that cited irreconcilable differences regarding professional standards and ethical conduct. The language was deliberately vague but damning. Anyone who knew how to read between the lines understood. Logan had committed some serious ethical violation that even his own father couldn't overlook. Leonard also made calls, methodical, careful calls to the family offices and institutions Logan had approached during his failed fundraise. He didn't share the full details. He was discreet enough to avoid turning it into public scandal. But he said enough, that Logan had fabricated evidence to destroy someone's reputation in college, that he'd lied about it for over a decade, that Leonard couldn't in good conscience recommend him as a partner or investment professional. The story spread through the private equity and real estate networks quickly. Not the specific details, those stayed contained, but the outline. Logan Bancroft had done something serious enough that his own father had cut him off. In an industry built on relationships and trust, that was a death sentence. I started getting calls. Russell Montoya reached out, awkwardly asking if the rumors about Logan were true. I confirmed they were and told him I wasn't interested in discussing it further. He pushed, said he wanted to clear the air about how he'd handled things back in 2014. I hung up on him. Ian Aldridge sent an email that was essentially a non-apology apology, saying he'd heard some things about what happened at Penn and wanted to reconnect. I didn't respond. Several other people from my Penn network, people who'd ghosted me in 2014, suddenly wanted to have coffee, grab drinks, catch up. Every single one of them got the same response: silence. Because I'd gotten what I actually wanted. Not their validation or their belated apologies, just the satisfaction of knowing that Logan had finally faced consequences for what he'd done. He'd lost his position, his credibility, his professional future. He'd have to rebuild from nothing the way I had. Except unlike me, he had no work ethic, no real skills, no experience operating without a safety net. He was going to fail, and I was never going to help him. In October 2025, about a month after the confrontation, I got a text from an unknown number. "You destroyed my life. Logan." I showed Cassandra the message. She took my phone, blocked the number, and handed it back. "He doesn't get to contact you anymore," she said. "That part's over." She was right. It was over. We got married in November 2025. Small ceremony at a boutique hotel in Rittenhouse Square. Just close friends and family. Desmond was my best man. Cassandra's parents were there. Her father had apologized to me privately several months earlier for not questioning Logan's story back in 2014, for assuming I was guilty based on someone else's narrative. I'd accepted the apology, not because it changed anything, but because holding on to anger toward him served no purpose. We honeymooned in Italy, 2 weeks wandering through Rome and Florence and the Amalfi Coast. For the first time in over a decade, I wasn't thinking about Logan, or revenge, or what I'd lost. I was just present, with my wife, building something new. When we returned to Philadelphia in early December, I found an envelope waiting at my office, no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from Logan. "I know you won't read this. I know you've blocked my number and want nothing to do with me. But I need to say it anyway. What I did to you was unforgivable. I was jealous, obsessed, and weak. I convinced myself that if I could just break you two up, Cassandra would see me differently. But all I did was destroy 3 lives, yours, hers, and my own. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my father's respect, any chance at the career I thought I'd have, and I deserve it. I know that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm just telling you that I understand what I did, and I'm sorry. I hope you and Cassandra are happy together. You both deserve that." Logan, I read it once, then put it through the shredder. Cassandra walked into my office a minute later. "What was that?" "Nothing important," I said. She looked at the shredded paper in the bin, then at me. "Logan, he apologized. Said he's lost everything and he deserves it. Do you feel vindicated?" I thought about it. "No, I feel nothing, and that's probably the best outcome." She came around the desk, sat on the edge, took my hand. "I'm proud of you, for not letting him take anything else from you, for choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck in the past." "I had help," I said. "We helped each other." She was right, we had. The firm continued to grow. By the end of 2025, Radcliffe & Coher was managing $340 million in AUM. We'd expanded into 3 new markets, hired 28 additional employees, established ourselves as one of the more respected value-add real estate debt platforms in the Mid-Atlantic. We started raising Fund 2 in January 2026, targeting $200 million. The fundraise went smoothly. Our track record was strong, our investor relationships were solid, and this time there were no background calls to Logan Bancroft. There were no whispered concerns about my character or interpersonal issues. There was just the work, the deals, the returns. By March 2026, we'd closed Fund 2 at $237 million, oversubscribed. Our investor base included major family offices, pension funds, and endowments. We had 53 employees. We were a real institutional platform. I was 34 years old, married to the woman I loved, running a business I'd built from nothing. My net worth had crossed $32 million. I owned my home outright, had financial security that would last multiple lifetimes, had professional respect from people whose opinions actually mattered. Logan was 34 years old, unemployed, blacklisted from his family's firm, struggling to explain to potential employers why he'd been severed from Bancroft Capital Partners. I heard through the network that he'd tried to start his own consulting practice. It had failed within 6 months. No one wanted to work with someone who'd been publicly disowned by his own father for ethical violations. The symmetry wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. One evening in late March, Cassandra and I were walking home from dinner through Rittenhouse Square. Early spring, the trees just starting to bud, the city coming back to life after a long winter. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Logan hadn't done what he did?" she asked. "Sometimes." "What do you think?" "I think we might have stayed together through senior year. Maybe gotten jobs in New York, tried to make long-distance work, eventually broken up because we were too young and moving in different directions." "You think we would have broken up?" "Probably. Most college relationships don't survive the transition into real life." She was quiet for a moment. "So in a twisted way, Logan gave us a better chance, because we got to find each other again as adults, as people who'd actually built something independently." "That's a generous interpretation." "Maybe, but I'd rather think of it that way than spend the rest of my life angry at what he took from us." I stopped walking, turned to face her. "Do you know what the best revenge is?" "What?" "This, right here. The fact that we're happy, successful together. The fact that we built lives that don't need him or anyone like him. The fact that we won, completely and permanently, in a way he can never take back." She kissed me, the streetlights reflecting in her dark hair. "You're right," she said. "We won." We walked the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, my arm around her shoulders, her hand in mine. And I realized something. I'd spent 11 years building toward a moment of confrontation, a final reckoning where I'd prove to everyone who doubted me that I'd been right all along. I'd imagined it would feel triumphant, vindicating, complete. But the actual confrontation in the Bancroft conference room had been quiet, controlled, almost anticlimactic. The real victory wasn't the moment Logan lost everything. It was this: walking through my neighborhood with my wife toward the home I owned, thinking about the business I'd built, the life I'd created, completely unburdened by the need for anyone else's validation. I'd started with nothing. I'd lost everything. I'd rebuilt from the ground up, and I'd won. Not because I'd destroyed Logan, though I had, but because I'd created a life where his opinion, his presence, his existence in the world meant absolutely nothing to me. That was the revenge, not the dramatic confrontation, not the evidence or the recording or the public humiliation, just indifference. Total, complete, permanent indifference. I'd won because I'd moved on, because I'd built something real, because I had someone who loved me, a career that fulfilled me, security that couldn't be taken away. And Logan would spend the rest of his life unable to do the same. We reached our front door. Cassandra unlocked it, and we went inside, leaving the cold and the city and everything that had come before behind us. I closed the door, and I didn't look back. Not at Logan, rotting in the ruins of the life he'd destroyed through his own narcissism and lies. Not at Russell or Ian or any of the others who'd turned away when it mattered and now wanted back in. Not at the Penn network that had discarded me like I was nothing. I looked forward, at Cassandra smiling at me from the kitchen, at the life we were building together, at the future that was ours and ours alone. I'd won, completely, permanently, and nothing Logan Bancroft could ever do would change that. Stories like this happen more often than we think. Subscribe if you want to hear the ones that usually stay unspoken. And if this story made you pause, a like helps the channel grow.